Hey everybody, what's up? So today I want to talk about the Tower of Babel, and you can follow along at Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 through 9 in your King James Version Bible, or you can go online and find it for free. I believe it's kingjamesbibleonline.org. Um, yeah, I just wanted to start with verse 1, and it says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." And just to backpedal a little bit here, the descendants of Noah are the whole earth essentially at this point. There was a giant flood to baptize the earth that had been before it, which was populated by people who were dwelling in their ego and in their five senses. In order to bring back spirituality and consciousness, a great flood had to happen, or a baptism, similar in the Catholic religion, how you have to get baptized to become purified. The same thing happened then with needing to purify the earth. So the descendants of Noah are now populating the earth. And in this passage it says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." And it came in number 2. So yeah, we'll just keep going. Number 2. "And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found the plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there." So these people originally were from the east. Now Noah was a chosen person, similar to Abel in Cain and Abel, similar to Jesus Christ. These people represent the spiritual, I guess, connection that is just ornate, or like something that's very natural to them in their expression, because these characters are meant to express that aspect of human. In a human being, there's a twofold nature where it could be like you and God. It could be a threefold nature where it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Like there's different ways to break it down, but the numerology of the stories in the Bible are all important. And in this sense, I mean, right now I guess it can go in a couple of different ways, but Noah had 3 sons, and those 3 sons then had a crazy amount of sons. If you go to Genesis chapter 10, verses 1 to like, I think it's 31 or 21, it just literally, there's like Canaan, Miznad, Elab, like I don't even know their names. It's like no disrespect, but it's not Christopher. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more difficult to pronounce. So, these people are dwelling the earth. And just to explain something further, I want to say that the generation aspect is very important, because first you have Noah, who was chosen at birth. He understood he was chosen. He listened to God's word up until the end. Essentially, he wavered a little bit. He drank, and then like his sons found him naked. That's just like a story for that video. It's symbolic. It's not real. But like it just also proves that like even the most holiest of people can fall from grace, and that's exactly what we do. It's our human nature. We are connected to God, and then we forget, and then we're connected, and then we forget. It's the stations of the cross. We rise, we fall, we rise, we fall. Oh my God, I'm so connected to God. I feel God in spirituality. Then some shit happens and whatever, and then you fall, and then you like dwell in your emotions and your sadness because you're in the 3D world, and it's just a matter of finding heaven. And heaven is the midpoint between those places, is understanding the balance between your spiritual nature and the human nature, and unifying them and being the observer of them. So going back to the generational thing, Noah was technically the purest of the pure, had these 3 kids. Their names are Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and each of those really represent the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Ham represents, I'm pretty sure, let me go here real quick. This is the base metals, or the lower nature, which must be purified through alchemic processes to rise to the higher state. So I would imagine like this could be like coal to diamonds, right? Like Ham is more so represented by coal. There needs to be a lot of pressure, a lot of like intervention, and like stress in order for it to become something very beautiful. And that's like what humans are. Like we have to go through some tribulation to become something really great. Shem, he represents the golden stage, or spiritual gold, and that just is purity, enlightenment, and the highest form of wisdom. So you have the highest form of wisdom. Then you have the guy who represents more of the material world, is Ham. Ham, think of like a pig, think of like flesh, like meat. Then you have Japheth, and he's the mercurial and the philosophical Mercury, representing the balance between spiritual and intellectual energies, the potential for growth and expansion. So here you have a son who's symbolic of basically balancing his two brothers. He is like the caulking to like bind these two tiles together, if you want to reference like bathroom remodeling. I don't know why that came to my mind. So Shem is representative of enlightenment, Ham is like the ego and the body, and Japheth is the potential to essentially bind these two together, the wisdom. So I could see Shem, like I think I had said this, Shem being God, Ham being the Son, and Japheth being the Holy Spirit in this representation. But these guys, right, are representing aspects of those. Noah was all of these in one. Now Shem, Ham, and Japheth are kind of like isolated in their own symbolic senses of being these characters. So when there's any kind of separation, then there's like a little bit of, what's it called? Like muckiness, like you're not as pure because you're separate. So now you're in the delusion of the 3D world. You're not really seeing that you're actually all one. And then when you give birth to more manifestations or more sons and daughters, that's going to be passed down, you know? So similar to Adam and Eve, they fell from grace. They fell from, like, I put that in quotes, like, it, in my opinion, it's really not like, it's not Eve's fault. She bit an apple and the whole world went to shit. Like, I've eaten so many apples and I don't think the world's to shit because I like, you know, Granny Smith. Like, it's not a literal thing. It has to be something symbolic. And essentially what that is giving into temptation. And the snake is just symbolic of your ego tempting you, and or like talking you into something that you don't necessarily want. The reason why the snake is like a little bit of a swivel and then the apple is this giant ball is because your head is a giant ball and your spine's a little swivel. Like, that is symbolic of your spine and your mind. And Eve represents the emotions, and she gave into indulging into her emotions of flavor and like taste and wanting to experience the three-dimensional world. And then that's technically sinning, you know, it's dwelling in your emotions. That's what sin means. But because they were in that state, they fell from grace, they fell from balance, then they reproduced, and then they had Cain and Abel. And then Cain ended up murdering his brother. So it's like they gave birth to people who weren't, you know, of like pure consciousness, like Jesus or Noah. Granted, Noah was like asked to, he was like recruited essentially, but like, you get what I'm saying. These people are giving birth when they're not in a pure state, so then their offspring is not going to be of pure state. And this is when, because it says they journeyed from the east, when you journey from the east, you're journeying away from the right side. And the right side is very important in the Bible, and it's mentioned multiple times. I'll bring it up here in Exodus 15, 6. It says, "Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy." Here it's basically saying like, hey, your right hand is so powerful, it destroyed your enemies. But what does the right hand mean? You know, why is this more powerful than this? These are the same thing. So, but if it's all in parables, and Jesus said he spoke in parables, we have to take him in parables. So what does the right side mean? And then it says in Psalm 110:1, "The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool." So it's saying, hey, dude, you know, sit at my right hand, and all those jokers that are causing you trouble, I'll smush them for you. Like, they're not a big deal. Like, I got you. So what does that mean? What is the right side? Why is the right so powerful? And when you think about your brain, because on earth as it is in heaven, where's heaven? It's here. It depends on your perceptions. Where's earth? It's the physical realm. My perception will dictate what happens in my physical realm. It could be raining outside. If it rains and I see it rains and I had plans to go to the beach, I'll say, man, this day sucks. That's my perception. I'm dwelling in hell. But if I'm a farmer and there's a drought and I haven't seen rain for my crops in weeks, and then all of a sudden this amazing flood of water comes and allows my crops to flourish, that day is going to be beautiful for me. I'm dwelling in heaven. It's a choice. It's perception, you know? So when, man, I went on a tangent there, huh? Oh, here we go. Yeah. So it depends. Like, are you going to use the left side of your brain for judgment, or are you going to be grateful for what you have? The right side, typically the angel's always depicted on the right side and the devil's always on the left. And there's a reason for that. It's because your left side is very practical, it's very logical, it's very judgmental to keep your body safe. And you need that. It's good for that. But when you overindulge in needing to be safe and feeling practical and calculative and all this crap, then you kind of dwell in your 3D realm. But we're far beyond that. You know, we're spiritual beings. This is the age of Aquarius. All this information is coming down on Earth and everything is shifting because it needs to better match the true energy of what we're meant to manifest on this earth. And that's a lot closer to love than it is to hate. I'll tell you that much. So when you dwell on the right side of your brain, you're dwelling in power. It even says all your enemies will be dashed in half, or your enemies are going to be made a footstool if you use the right side. The right side is what you receive when you tithe your left side, the 10%. That's why it says, you know, tithe 10% of your income. It's not about tithing 10% of your money or your income. It's about tithing the 10%, letting go of your logic and your rationality to receive the wisdom you're meant to receive. When you're in the shower and you're not thinking anything, you have great ideas. When you're driving and you're stuck at a red light, you have an incredible idea to solve a problem you had. It's because you're not taking thought. Multiple times in the Bible, it says take no thought. And for whatever reason, we constantly take thought, especially when we try to interpret this. This is to be interpreted through meditation and pondering. It's not meant to be taken literally without any thought. Because when you take something very literally, it's just point blank, simple, period, no questions, right? When you take something figuratively, it makes you think. And there's a difference between thinking and thinking. And thinking on the left means practically analyzing something, and thinking on the right means allowing something outside of you to give you thoughts and to receive thoughts and to gift those thoughts to others. So I wanted to explain all of that, to explain this passage when it says they journeyed from the east. They're leaving the divine thoughts. They're leaving their connection to God and their connection to intuition. And that you can only assume that means they're going to the left, right? Where other place can you go? I mean, you could go north or south, but whatever, you're not in the right. And that's the most important part. And it says they found the plain in the land of Shinar and they dwelt there. So now this entire group of people that are descendants of Noah, who are very strayed from their divine nature and their intuition, are now camping out and they're settling down. Let's see here. Okay, verse 3. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and slime had dye for mortar. Now, here they're going to start building the city. But look at how they say they don't have mortar and they don't have stone. So what are they settling for? They're settling for slime and they're settling for brick because that's all they have. And that's basically symbolic of saying your mind can only take you so far, but your soul can take you that much further. Like, it's like saying like, hey, I'm good with only a 5K raise, when in reality, if you were just to like wait an extra amount of time, you could get 10K or 20K or something like that. It's like we always will settle for something practical because your mind can see the outcome of something practical. We are cautious to trust something intuitive because the mind can't possibly conceive what the soul is seeing for the body itself, you know, as a whole. The mind sees the soul as a threat because it can't possibly calculate the outcome of abundance it could have. So that's why it's scared of the soul, and that's why it doesn't like your soul, and that's why there's conflict, because it doesn't understand it. And it makes a lot of sense. When you don't understand something, how frustrating is it, right? So it's basically explaining that if we are to take it figuratively. So they settle for slime and they settle for brick because they don't have mortar and they don't have stone. And something I wanted to talk about here is the difference between slime and mortar. I found the definition. Slime is also synonymous with the word, I might be pronouncing it wrong, but bitumen. And it says that bitumen, when used in ancient construction, wasn't primarily valued for its compressive strength. And that means the resistance to being crushed. Instead, it was used for adhesive properties to hold materials together. Bitumen can be very strong in terms of binding power, but it doesn't have the structural integrity needed to withstand heavy loads over time. And when you just follow your mind and you're just driven by your mind, like you're just like money, 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 that's it, that's all I care about. Like you don't take in consideration how you feel about what you're doing. You don't take in consideration how you feel about getting it. Like none of it matters except for the tangible physical item that was a construct of your own mind. That's when things fall apart very quickly. When you start using your intuition and follow your guidance, there's something about feeling like you're finally in alignment with participating with what your soul is calling you to do. And when I believe personally, especially now that I'm doing this, making videos, it's like a part of me is being more fulfilled. Is it for my ego? No, because if it was, I would have done this a long time ago. I don't care for attention. I don't care really to like be known or anything. It's not really the point, but I feel so incredibly called to share this information and I really enjoy learning it. And I think that lends a hand to what I meant to do. And what that is, I have no idea, but I'll get back to you when I find out. Because that's kind of how life works. It's just, you don't really know the leap of faith you're taking, but when you look back, it all makes sense. And faith, honestly, all it translates to confidence. And if you have confidence in your soul more than you do your mind, I mean, you're pretty much set, you know, like something is guiding you. And Zach Bush, he's a doctor that I really love to follow. And if you haven't heard of him, I highly recommend checking out any of his videos because he's very much in tune with frequency and feminine and masculine energies and different things. And he originally was a doctor who wanted to find a cure for cancer and honestly says, hey, you know, we all have the cure for cancer. It's just, if we were to let it be known, if the mass media was to let it be known, that wouldn't be a lot of profit for some people because, I mean, it sounds terrible, but like being sick is a business. And you don't get much money out of people who are healthy when you're in that business. But I do think the truth is coming out and a lot of people are going to heal in the future because a lot of it has to do with our food and a lot of it has to do with how we feel. Our emotions create different kinds of chemicals in our body that turn on certain genes, and that's epigenetics. If you've ever heard of oh my God, I can't talk, dude. Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, or Joe Dispenza. I highly recommend looking into all three of them because they're super intelligent and incredibly knowledgeable of the human body and the mind and the soul and how all of them are so interconnected and how we can honestly heal ourselves. Hey, so I just wanted to interject here real quick. I went on a tangent again, and I'm not going to stop because this is who I am, and I like sharing information. But I need to backpedal and remember why I say things. So I brought up Zach Bush because he said something that was pretty powerful. And working in hospice for as many years as he had, and just being next to the bedside of many, many patients who passed on to the other side, a majority of them say, you know, I wish I was a little more authentic. And that lends a hand to living your purpose, which is exactly why I brought up, you know, feeling called to share videos or this information. I don't care if it's right, wrong, left, right, upside down. It just feels right. And it feels right. So I want to do it. And I feel like more people need to follow their authentic calling because it's for something. And to be given the gift of peace and not feel the restlessness, the joy of following a calling is so rewarding, and it contributes to the work given to the world we live in. No matter how big or small, right or wrong you might think it is, I highly encourage just following that Abel side of you, that Noah side of you, that Jesus side of you, because all it comes down to is remembering who you are and the connectedness you have to the other side and being brave enough to have the courage to have faith and follow what your guidance is telling you. So yeah, sorry for that tangent. But basically, these guys, these descendants of Noah who are so in their ego are using things that aren't nearly as strong as they could be. And the reason why they are using these things is because they're limited by them. This is the only thing they can find, and that's the only thing your mind will provide you as a limitation. If you follow your soul, you will transcend limitation. And that's why, what's it called? I also wanted to bring up this part because I thought it was so cool. If they were to use mortar, which is symbolic of using your soul, it says mortar's strength allows buildings to remain stable and resistant crushing under pressure. And what's pressure? Pressure, stress. So when you're stressed out, you freaking fall apart when you don't have any stability or like anyone around you to support you, right? Any love. That's essentially what it is. When you don't have somebody loving you and encouraging you to do what you do or love for yourself, you're going to fall apart, right? That's you using Bitman or slime or whatever the word is. If you were with God, you could have mortar and you could resist the crushing under pressure. You can transcend it. All right, so line 4, it says, and they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And so essentially, these guys are going to build a city and a giant tower. And it says whose top may reach onto heaven. So they want to basically show God that they can be God, that I don't need to follow my spirit. I don't need to travel beyond. I don't need to have the hero's journey and go out of my comfort zone. I can just camp out and stay here in my little shell forever and never challenge myself and never change. And I can reach the same amount of potential that I could if I was to follow my soul. And that's just not the case. And for them, they want to say, go to, let's build a city and a tower. And when you want to build a city or a tower, it's something very tangible, something very physical. So it's saying like you are trying to play God by lending a hand to creation using your mind. If you were to follow God and go beyond using your mind, you could create something far more vast than a simple city or a dumb tower, right? So this also lends a hand to the idea of an atom being split apart. And an atom being split apart was in reference again to William Donahue. And he was saying that atom is just a loose translation for, or symbolic of the Egyptian god. No, this is the Greek god, Atum. And Atum, A-T-U-M, is how it's spelled. And Atom, oh shoot, I don't have the definition here really quick. Oh no, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna pull it up, that's what I'm gonna do. Because in times of crisis, you just say whatever and you move on. 1 second. Okay, my bad. So Atom is actually an ancient Egyptian god. He's not Greek. And he's associated with the creation of the world. He is said to have created himself from the waters of Nun and brought the first elements of creation into existence. So, and that's also, they're saying, like, such as the god Shu, air, and Tefnut, which is moisture. Okay. So basically, this is the guy who created everything. He's the first, he's the beginning of creation, right? So if this man is symbolic of the first thing of creation, and we're not to take this literally, we think, okay, so it's not this giant god in the sky. Adam isn't actually the first man. Adam, or man, is just symbolic of the mind and the body, right? So, Atom here is just a symbol of, ATUM is just a symbol of creation. He's the symbol of the beginning. ATUM is the symbol of the beginning. ADAM is the symbol of the first man. So if these people are just symbolism and they're not actually entities, then what do these represent? And William Donahue had said that in Atom and Atom are no different than Atom, A-T-O-M. So an atom, not that I know much about science, but what I know is that when an atom, without an atom splitting, meaning like creating more of itself and like combining with other atoms, life would be 1,000,000% different. So if an atom didn't split, atoms would remain unchanged. There'd be no chemical reactions or very limited reactions, no electricity or magnetism, no atomic or nuclear reactions, Fundamental physics would be altered. Life and biology would not exist as we know it. So literally everything would be changed. And the reason why this is important is because when you have Adam and Eve, right, you have an atom and you have an electron. When you separate an atom and electron, meaning a rib out of Adam to make Eve, you rip an electron out of Adam, and now you have two components. Now these two components are unstable. So what are they going to do? They're going to seek other, I guess, chemicals. I know one becomes an ion and the electron kind of floats around until it finds something else to become a full atom again or something like that. But essentially what it is splitting to create. It goes under a very uncomfortable, unstable process and is seeking comfort to stabilize itself because now it's unstable. So with that being said, essentially in these stories in the Bible, everybody's basically being encouraged to be uncomfortable. Everybody's always told to split, to like rip apart what you already know, to offer something you're not used to. Cain is being told, hey dude, you understand, if you don't offer the understanding that you are a spirit, I will not accept you. And that's just symbolism of saying, hey, your mind cannot be your soul. And if you keep offering me your mind, I'm not going to say yes to you. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, I recommend you watch the video I have on Cain and Abel, or other people that can explain this much better than I can. But it's constantly being represented in this sense. The splitting of the atom is like God is telling these people, hey, you have to go repopulate the whole earth. Or yeah, God. And these people are like, no, we don't want to. And that's the mind. That's the free will of the mind being scared of change. And how often are we scared of change? How often are we scared to follow our calling? And it's literally just, again, symbolism of the human condition to reject intuition because we can't predict what the outcome will be. The mind can't rationalize it. Okay, so moving on. We have line 5. And it says, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And here, to me, it's just like God saying he came down to see the tower and the city and everything that they were doing. And it said, which the children of men builded. Here they don't mention women. And women are important to note anytime in the story because women are symbolic of the feminine nature, which is the subconscious, the emotions, the intuition. And men are symbolic of ego taking action, the body, and things that are physical. So the children of men here, and man, I mean, represents like the ego, the body, the mind, and these are offspring of that. So it's just more offspring of people who are in delusion of their 5 senses and dwelling in the reality of using the 3D world as their only place of understanding. They have no connection to God, and they're just creating this city and tower out of fear because that's all they know. All they know is their 5 senses. In line 6, it says, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. So here it kind of says that like God is saying, wow, like I see that these guys have bound together and they found unity and they're going to achieve what they want to do because they came together. And that can be seen in a beautiful way. It's like, wow, when we get together, we can achieve anything. But in this sense, it's also done from such a lustful, gluttonous lack mindset. Like you're trying to transcend love and you're trying to prove that you know more than like God does or the infinite universe that had created you. And it's like, well, the infinite universe that created us also created the mind. So like, can you understand that? Can you tell me where the mind came from? Can you rationalize the mind? Can you really tell me exactly everything about the mind down to a T that, you know, you figured it all out? If the answer is no, which it should be, and if it's not, you're psychotic, it just, you can't rationalize more than God understands reality. I don't know why I came here. I don't know when I'm going to leave. All I know is I'm here to feel in alignment. I'm here to feel like I'm of service and doing something of value. And that is this. Not just this, but it's part of it, right? So that was a tangent. But God is saying to these people, wow, you bound together and did this, but because it's through your mind and because it's not through intuition and following what you're meant to do, there's a problem here. You can only go so far with your mind. You can't go that far. You could go much further with your intuition and your inner knowing. Line 7, it says, go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Now here's like something interesting. It says, go to, let us go down. This is God speaking. So God is saying, let us go down. Hey, who's us? Is God a singular entity? Or is it multiple entities? Also, I wanted to pull this quote up from the Bible. It's in Genesis chapter 1, page 26. This is the reference. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. That must mean there's a multitude of entities that are God. Sorry, he's not a man in the sky with a beard in some place called heaven. Heaven is in your brain, and God is a plural entity. So, go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So here, confound means to confuse. So what God is doing is saying, we're going to mess up the language so they can't understand each other. They can't make sense of one another. So basically, he can separate their unity. And it's the unity of the mind. It's like coming together of like the madness of the mind. And God's like, no. We need to make your thoughts all different. We need to make sure you're not all on the same page, because this is where trouble happens. When we use too much of our mind, we get lost. And that lends a hand to why the city is called Babel. So the Lord scattered, and this is line 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. So here basically God's like, all right, I'm going to confuse your language, and what I'm going to do, because you didn't listen to me before, is take you all and sprinkle you all around the earth, because you should have listened to me before and now you didn't, but now I'm forcing you. And to an extent, that kind of seems like divine intervention. It's like, hey buddy, you're meant to do this thing. Like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm shaking. Like, you're really good at art, but you're scared to do it because the logical perception of being an artist is, oh, you're gonna eat your paintings on the street, aren't you? Oof, kind of sucks. You're not a lawyer or a doctor. At least that's what I would think. I love art. I enjoy creating. I always thought very little of myself, and everyone else was super encouraging. This was nobody's fault but my own. My mind took me over big time, and it's a part of why I got into all of this eventually after 10 years of going through my own experiences. But now I'd like to think I'm fairly successful, and I enjoy myself, and I find my passions to be able to make me money, and I think I'm pretty abundant. And it's like, when you can find joy in creating, then you will be rewarded whatever that abundance has to be. And when you follow the voice that's guiding you, it's just like you're always protected. So here, God's just like, dude, I just wish you would have listened to me when I just said to scatter. You could have taken a boat. Some of you could have taken first class United, not Spirit, sorry. But you didn't. So what am I going to do? I'm going to literally pick all of you up and toss ya. Like, I'm over the bullshit. So God's like, if you ain't going to do it, I am. So he does it, and he tosses them all over the place. And then we have line 9. It says, therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Now, when you have the word Babel, and I think like in just general slang context, it means to like go on and on and on, kind of like what I'm doing, but I hope I'm making sense. But the actual definition of Babel is confusion of the sounds or voices. So it's kind of interesting, because when you're stuck in your mind it means like you're just so disoriented with all of your thoughts. Like you can have one thought about it, then you can ask your friend for an opinion, and then that's another thought, and then all it is just like this cloud of confusion, and all these thoughts and all of your like mental capacity and strength is just feeling like it's going to fall apart in shambles because you don't have mortar to hold it together. You're not accessing your spirit, so you're going to crumble because of your stress. And that's exactly why it's called that way. And sometimes to get you out of your mind, you need someone to wake you up and shake you and be like, you're meant for so much more. Like you have all the capability to get to the next step. You have all the potential for expansion. You have such pure intentions, or at least you started with them. And I know you have the capacity to hold them true. And you're just falling down, right? Like this is just the Stations of the Cross again. Like someone fell from grace, and that's fine, because the beauty of it is that you understand how to get back up again. If you didn't fall, you wouldn't know how to get back up. So because you were up at one point, you know how to get up again. And that's essentially, in my opinion, what this story is saying. Is just like, it might be scary to expand. No one likes to be uncomfortable. But when you face your fears and being uncomfortable, you become so proud of making the unknown known. You know, I heard this somewhere, but it's like when you're looking in the dark for the first time after being blinded by using the light, and it's just like, whoa, I can't see anything. Like this is bad. And then once you get accustomed to the dark, you start seeing the silhouettes and the outlines of objects that are pretty familiar. And then you find comfort in the dark. You find it kind of peaceful. You kind of find it quiet, and you kind of find it a little nice. And it's like, it's the same with the unknown. When we don't know what it is because we're blinded by our 3D reality, the awareness of our eyes looking to see, we don't connect to the inner knowing of seeing something, right? Like I can go meet somebody for the first time and shake their hand, and just because they have a smile on their face doesn't mean they're a good person. You know, if my dog goes up to them or something and feels something bad, they're not seeing something bad, they feel something bad. And that's the same as seeing. It's just using your senses in the internal sense, not the external sense. So essentially, again, this story is just saying like, hey, you got to break down to build up, and you can't use your mind to get there. You have to follow your spirit. You have to follow your soul, and you have to follow your guidance. So that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you at the next one.